Like if I can just focus on removing all my second love and focus on my one love, then boom, Jesus is going to show up. And that means that I'm going to have to prefer unity over my opinion. And I'm going to have to move away from my opinion about things to reattain the love I have for Him. Because your opinion keeps you further from Him than anything else.
Awesome day at Legacy.
Yeah,
Super fun having you.
it's great to be there.
Thanks for being here. We were recollecting the other day about how long we'd known each other. It's so funny, man. I thought we'd known each other 5 years.
Totally, I thought the same thing. I was like, 5 or 6 years, do we have to have? And then I'm like, wait, not possible.
We've only known each other for 3 years.
Correct.
It was wild, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
2015.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So, favorite question. What are you the most passionate about right now?
The thing I'm most passionate right now is
Right now.
probably truth.
So if you had to write a book right now, you'd write it about,
I would probably write it about like walking in the light, which is living in the truth.
wow. So that's like a Christian phrase, walking in the light. But what does that really mean to you?
Yeah, well, I think like we are people who don't tell the truth.
Dang.
You know, I think that, you know, from saying hello to someone and
Right.
them asking you how you're doing, we lie. I mean, we lie on Facebook. I mean, we lie on Instagram because that filter life,
Man.
you know. So we're like, we kind of live in a perpetual state of lying.
Right, right.
And so, you know,
That's a problem.
It's a major problem because, you know, First John's like, if you aren't living in the truth or you aren't walking in the light, because it's always connected in Scripture, light and truth,
Wow.
then you end up not fellowshipping with God or people. Like you put yourself in darkness,
Wow.
which we know, like it's a bad thing to be in darkness.
Absolutely.
You can't see anything, nothing's clear to you. It's because, you know, we live such muddled lives.
So are you suggesting, basically, that if we're not walking in truth, then we'll end up isolated, we'll end up blind
Yes.
to real life,
Yes.
we'll end up depressed,
Yes.
perhaps,
Yeah.
or at least dejected.
Yeah, well,
to
the
some
word
extent.
the word truth in Greek, aletheia, actually means reality.
No kidding.
So if you're not walking in the truth,
Yeah, yeah.
then you're not walking in reality.
So how do we walk in truth? Are you just talking about being vulnerable or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like one step in it, and that's kind of the easiest step is just learning to be vulnerable. I think it's also learning to communicate powerfully,
Wow.
which
wow.
a lot of people don't do. And so it's, you ask me how am I doing? If I'm having a bad day, a powerful way to communicate is say, you know, I'm actually not having a great day, but I'm not
Right.
sure I want to talk about it right now.
Right, right, right.
And being okay with like an acceptable answer that's not pretty or clean or,
Yeah.
but really learning how to, you know, communicate courageously and powerfully about what's really happening.
Yep.
So I think that's a huge way. I think a way that no one likes to talk about is confession, which is really difficult.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
you know, confession in Scripture means to say the same thing.
Really?
It's what it
So what does
literally
that mean?
means.
Break it down for us, man.
Yeah. So if God says something and I say the same thing, I'm confessing God.
Wow, wow, wow.
And so if I confess something, it means I'm saying the same thing as whatever else originally said it.
Interesting.
So I think, you know, you think about Adam and Eve in the garden and they get caught up in not truth. And what is God's first question? Who said that?
Wow.
So they confess something because they heard somebody else, the enemy of our souls, say it, the serpent, you know. And God's first question is, well, who said that?
Wow, wow, wow.
Because he didn't, you know, he was trying to let them know, hey, I didn't say that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and walking in the truth
That's so
is
interesting.
living and saying what God says.
Wow.
So First John kind of challenges us, says like, if we say we don't have any sin, we deceive ourselves.
Right?
So I think one of the first steps of confession is getting to a place where you realize you can actually confess a lot more to people than you think, because we're all like confessing something.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
few of us are perfect or close to perfect, and so I think in a lot of ways it kind of demystifies, confession. It's like not that big of a deal actually to tell somebody, hey, you know what? I lied yesterday.
Right,
Or,
right,
hey, you
right.
know what? Like, I wasn't really kind. Just and being okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times we try to like protect ourselves and hide things ourselves, but it's really super common that we're all dealing with something.
Yeah.
So in our confession, we actually become connected. Because it's like, oh, me too. Like, I'm not perfect either.
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
actually remind ourselves of the humanity that Jesus called us to live in. Because he didn't ask us to walk around like ghosts.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
be human. Like,
Yes.
figure it out. It's going to be okay. So I think that's a huge part of it, is like kind of getting over that initial thought of like, man, if I tell somebody this thing, they're going to be like blown away. When really they're going to be like, hey, me too.
Wow.
So it makes it a
very
lot
interesting.
easier.
Confession is connection.
Yeah, it really is.
You cannot have connection aside from confession,
Yeah, totally.
because you're not really coming with your real self.
Right. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a false self. Well, in James, the reason why we confess is so that we'll be whole.
Yeah.
That's what it says,
yeah,
or you
yeah.
will be healed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the reason why a lot of us aren't in wholeness is because how can you be whole in something that's covered?
Wow.
Like if something's in the dark, you can't be whole because no one can see that part of you. So we've been kind of like joking a little bit about living in the light. It's like a life of no tan lines.
Yeah. You're not just showing like the best.
You're not just showing some part of you. You're
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
like, actually, this is who I am as a whole.
Wow.
Which I think is, if we can't do it with people,
Right.
like how can you possibly say that you're confessing to God?
Man, well, that's scripture.
Yeah.
If you confess to love your brother who
Right.
you can see.
Exactly.
Right? How does that go again? Remind me.
Yeah, it says if you love your brother, if you can't love your brother who you can't see,
I messed it
how
up.
can you love God who you can't see?
Who you can't see. That's right. Yeah. That's so good. Like, if community is so important, then how is it that so many Christians believe that they can function well aside from a church community?
I mean, I think a lot of that question about why people think they can do community without church, it ultimately goes back to kind of what Bonhoeffer says. It's like, it's self-justification.
Self-justification,
Yeah.
to believe
Yep.
that you can live a Christian life aside from Christian community.
Absolutely, because you think that you know enough, or you've accomplished enough, or you've come to enlightenment enough that you don't need anybody. Like, I'm good, I'm fine.
I don't need anybody else. I'm good.
It's actually like a real individualism that comes like kind of in America.
Wow,
Like we
wow.
value individualism, we
Right,
value
right.
kind of this independence even.
Expressing oneself.
But most of the other places in the world do not rely on an independent spirit.
Man.
We do in America, but you lived in India. It's very
yeah.
communal. You
It's very
rely on
different.
everybody. Africa, you rely on everyone. Most of the cultures that I would say are like primal and the beautiful things that they do are ones that never feel like it's independence. That's the value.
Wow.
And I don't ever see Jesus doing that.
No.
He could have come by himself, never had a follower, and saved the world.
Absolutely.
But he chose 12 men to live and confess to.
Beautiful. That's
know?
amazing. So last thing.
Yeah.
If you have somebody, for instance, who is listening to this vlog we're shooting today and this conversation we're
Sure.
having in public, like, how can you encourage and equip somebody who's maybe thinking, man, I've been living in isolation.
Yep.
I haven't confessed sin. I haven't confessed what's going on in my heart to anybody.
Right.
Maybe in a long time. Like, how can they get started in that? Do they have to go to church? Do they have to,
Yeah.
what's some practical advice
Sure.
you can give us, maybe even from some of the messages you've talked around this topic,
Yeah.
that we can start to take home and start to be active in right away?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing is moving towards self-awareness.
Wow.
Like-
how do we do that?
Identify your weakness and be able to communicate that to someone that you trust.
Okay.
It's as simple as, hey, you know what? I know I have a lot of pride in my life. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be like this long, ornate, detailed. Hey, I have a problem with lust.
Yep.
You just
Yep.
communicate it openly and honestly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
say, hey, I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm inviting you into it. That you might be able to help me. And really, the thing that I love so much about confession is
Yeah.
that when you confess something to me, I have an opportunity to extend grace to you.
Wow. Yes.
Because when I hear you, I'm like, man, I'm so sorry you're going through that.
Man.
Like, I want to remind you that Jesus' grace is always enough for your weakness, which is amazing. You can't say it to yourself,